Happy X Day, everybody. Wednesday is X Day. What show is this? Oh, we're diving right in. Gosh dang it. This is Mutant Academy. I'm your host, DJ Wooldridge. With me, as always, is Sal.
Hey.
Hey, man. Let us know. Say hi in the chat. I got you. I got you right here. Also, as always with this show, if you want us to read your comment on the air, drop it in that super chat. And we'll float a comment. Today we're talking about New Mutants, but before we get into that, classic tangent.
Ah, yes.
Since we last recorded, Sal, the finale to X-Men 97 has dropped.
Yes.
And I can tell based off the tenor of the internet, my opinions on it are divergent from most. I didn't love it as most as everybody. But Sal, can I tell you something that excites me about the prospect of season 2?
Yes, I would love to hear that.
Okay. So at the end, light spoilers for X-Men 97. I'm going to assume everybody on the Mutant Academy feed's caught up. But, if you're not, hold on. So at the very end, we see, not only do we see past Magneto in 3000 BC, but we see that Magneto is probably going to resurrect Gambit.
Oh, you mean Apocalypse?
I'm sorry, Apocalypse. Excuse me. Thank you.
Yes.
We see Apocalypse in 3000 BC, Apocalypse possibly resurrecting Gambit.
Yep.
And of course, my immediate thought, like I assume a lot of fans, is like, I wonder if we're going to do Age of Apocalypse. Like,
yeah, I think so.
Right. So
I think we gotta. I honestly, that was my pitch like eons ago. Like episode 1 or 2, I'm like, oh, we're going Age of Apocalypse. Like at the breakneck speed we did
Inferno.
I was like, oh, we're doing Age of Apocalypse. Like,
when I did, so I've been experimenting with my format. I did little reviews for the last 2 episodes. For the second to last episode, I was like, for all I know, Onslaught will be the bad guy of the finale. Like, we'll just here he is.
Oh yeah, no, I mean, especially with the cameos and the appearances of the heroes, like, oh, it's gonna be amazing. Like, we're gonna get like a straight up Central Park, all the heroes jump into Onslaught. It'll be different. I doubt he'll turn into pure thought, and then they'll all absorb his essence, and then the X-Men will kill the heroes, and then we're gonna make everyone look like they're drawn by Rob Liefeld and Jim Lee. I don't think we're gonna go there.
But that's how they explain why the Avengers can't show up at season 2. Like, we onslaughted them. They're out of here.
Now, if that were the case, I mean, like, that is a hell of a transition, by the way. Like, if you want to, I don't know, make an Avengers show or a Fantastic Four show and not necessarily tether them to the original shows, but still ape off that nostalgia, kill the Avengers and Fantastic Four, shunt them into a ultimate or alternate reality where you can reestablish who they are, and then have them all come back in like season 3 of Men, and then you have now like a Marvel cohesive universe of characters.
Well, I definitely feel like they're trying to do that, and I think your suggestion makes a lot of sense, because I was listing off the cameos in my review, and I'm like, well, T'Challa, Black Panther, and everybody's like,
it's T'Chaka.
And it's like, fucking why? Why is it T'Chaka?
That was bizarre. It was really bizarre, especially because they're like, oh no, it's all of those shows are canon. Like Iron Man, Fantastic, the Marvel Action Hour shows are canon, and I'm like, well, then Keith David is Black Panther, and it's T'Challa.
Yeah. So, but anyway, what I'm hoping for in what occurred to me that they could do in season 2 that I think would really interest me is, one of my issues with season 1 is Magneto gets the lightest of pushback for wanting to genocide the entire planet.
Yes, I think we're going to see that. Yeah,
and so I think it'd be really interesting, and I don't think this show has shown very little to no interest in really interrogating Magneto's, like, they don't want to paint him as a bad guy. It reminds me a lot of like anytime a character gets into a philosophical conversation with Punisher.
Right.
Where it's like, killing's bad for abstract reasons. And it's like, well, no, it's him just murdering people's bad for tangible reasons. Like, he would kill civilians, but we just never show that, because once you pull that thread, the whole thing unravels.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that with like Magneto. Like, we can't actually, like, you're not going to show crying parents holding their dead children because Magneto won't turn the lights. We're not going to do that. Right.
Yeah.
So what you could do is, in an Age of Apocalypse situation, where Apocalypse takes Magneto's goals to the end run, where like Magneto sees that now humans are in cages with numbers on their arms, just like he was. And it's a moment of him being like, wait a second, is this what I want? And I think that works too. It allows you to show Magneto's motivations in a negative light without painting Magneto negatively.
I love that.
And it also works because one of the cool things about Age of Apocalypse, if I'm remembering correctly, is Magneto good guy in Age of Apocalypse.
He's the Professor X in that reality.
Yeah.
And he's Stuppen Rogue more regularly. They have a kid.
As uncomfortable as that subplot made me in X-Men 97, it's not just from Age of Apocalypse, but obviously that's like the,
that's the Savage Land story. But even then, like, it's only all people really know about the Magneto Rogue relationship in main continuity outside of Age of Apocalypse is the pinup poster of her in her Savage Land outfit caressing Magneto. Like, that's all people know. Like, I genuinely have almost never seen two sequential panels that showcase those two in a relationship outside of an alternate reality. I've only seen Savage Land Rogue and Magneto just being Magneto, being like, yep, I went there, and that's it.
And I want anybody, when it comes to those plot lines, I want everybody to picture Ian McKellen and young Anna Paquin.
Suddenly it changes everything. Way. Now, that being said, I mean, like, Anna Paquin is clearly like Jubilee or whatever in the X-Men Singer movies, and Rogue is just a opportunity for us to showcase the bad version of being an X-Man as opposed to the awesome part, which is Wolverine. I don't know. I genuinely give Rogue more agency than she's being manipulated by Magneto or she's in some kind of a relation. I mean, yes, look, Magneto he's like an 85-year-old man in the body of like a 32-year-old man. Like, but Rogue is still a grown woman in the comics. Like, she's an adult. It may be a school for gifted youngsters, but she would be a teacher. But I hear you.
The point is, in season 2, I think there's something cool with, and I know typically Apocalypse is evolution, survival of the fittest for everybody across the board. But I think especially when he's holding Gambit's card, and he's like, I think he even says "my child," which makes it seem like this Apocalypse. I might have said Magneto again. Apocalypse is who I'm talking about. Okay, good. Apocalypse is maybe a little bit more mutant focused here, and again, I think it just might be a good way to, because I think this creative team is very pro Magneto being one of the good guys. And I think Apocalypse might be a good way to get a little. I don't know that they're going to do it, but get a little bit of the. I just want somebody to call Magneto on his shit, like genuinely call him on his shit. So maybe with Apocalypse we can do that.
Oh, definitely. Apocalypse can be the undisputed bad guy.
Yes,
and he can be so powerful that it'll be an awesome fight.
It
won't just be, why doesn't Professor X just turn him off? It'll be great. And of course, in the comics, Apocalypse did make Gambit into his Horseman Death, which of course would be ironic because he is dead in the show right now. That'd be great. And also, once he died, and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" I'm like, "He'll be back." Well, especially after Genosha, I went, "Oh, well, we'll just Age of Apocalypse this," and then when they fix it, people who were dead will just not be anymore, and we'll just move on. And when they did the Fatal Attractions for Wolverine, I'm like, well, we're really going to need to Age of Apocalypse this now because no one's going to go down the path of making Wolverine. Like, Wolverine does get his adamantium back from Apocalypse. So it stands to reason that it'll be awesome to see Apocalypse making a Horseman out of Gambit and Wolverine. And of course, he'll be like, oh, you're useless because you only have bone claws and your healing factor's broken. Here you go. And now you have adamantium back, and when we make you not a Horseman anymore, you could be Wolverine again.
You're gonna hate this, Sal, but I do want feral Wolverine.
I think we're gonna get him.
With the bandana and the whole shebang. I have fond memories of those comics as a kid.
We're gonna get it all. We're gonna get that iconic Kubert picture of him with the broken bone claws on the cover. It's just the cover of him like bleeding and screaming, and he's got broken bone. We're gonna get that shot in the show because this show does that. They go like, what's an iconic moment from the comic and make it happen.
It's like a greatest hits album of.
It is completely yes. It is history, but with X-Men. I'm there for it.
And and I think that's one of the things is like for some reason this show brought out my inner Alan Moore out the most. Like, this isn't like a novel. This is just a bunch of comics stapled together. What are you doing?
Yeah. It's not a graphic novel. There's no words here. I'm down though. Like, the thing is, this show isn't. I don't think that the show is so up its own butt that it's like pretentious. I think it's just. It's doing what I've always wanted the cartoon shows to do. Like, every single cartoon show, I'm just like, just take the effing comic books and put them on the screen. That's all I ever want. And when the comics faltered or took too long, just cut that shit. That's it. And And they did. I mean,
Yeah.
for any faults that the show may have, I'm very quick to forgive them because they are so small compared to the wins, and that they could that this is the lesson I want them to take away from it. Not necessarily ape off of nostalgia. If it takes nostalgia to get good adaptations of comic books, I'll fine.
Yeah.
Because eventually they have to go new. They if it's successful, they have to make new stuff.
You think?
Well, that's true.
You think? No, and I think you're also right, and that's something that I need to keep in mind. That I think part of my reaction is to everybody, and by everybody I mean like the online reaction, where it's like, is this the greatest TV show made by people ever? Like, get out of here, man. Get out of here. Like, come on, man, calm down.
It's better than the old show.
And, easily,
right?
Yeah.
Like, and the animation is better than I thought Disney was capable of achieving anymore. And they also didn't forget to like ramp up the melodrama, which is what not just Marvel comics, but more specifically what X-Men comics are all about.
You're right, man. You're right. You're 100% right about that. And it just might have been too much for me. Just too
I hear you.
much
I completely understand. The thing is,
too much of a Cyclops pouting. I was like, I don't know that.
Yeah, but
and it was one of those. This is the comics. It is the comics.
This is the comics.
Maybe this is why I haven't picked up an X-Men comic in a few years.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's been very different. Cyclops has been happier lately. Not right now during Fall of X, but
because we got to get him back. We're going back to the '90s, baby. That's what we're doing in the comics.
I'm not excited for the new status quo, but you know, I've been wrong before.
I'll tell you what I am excited about. Mark Russell is writing an X Factor book, and I like that writer.
Yeah,
and I like that Havoc costume. I've always.
Oh yeah,
yeah. It's one of those things like we'll talk about in this. Ooh, I just stumbled across our segue. Sunspot. I really need X-Men '97 to put Sunspot in his '90s X-Force, the blue and red.
Yes.
That's my Sunspot costume. Sunspot's one of my favorites because he looks cool. That's
he sure does.
Comics, it's like, oh, that guy looks cool.
Yeah, no, I love Roberto. I loved him mostly thanks to Hickman. Like I understood him, but I prefer him when he's doing stuff with like Cannonball. And it's cool. I'm down.
And speaking of Sunspot hanging out with Cannonball, baby, we are talking about new Mutants, 2020's New Mutants. Before we get into that, we got some super chats here. We got AKA 480. Hello, hope you're both well. Any chance of you guys doing the MTV Spider-Man for Spider-Versity? I think there's a chance of us doing everything eventually.
Yeah, I think I would not hold my I still wouldn't hold my breath, but I would definitely say it's more probable than improbable.
Well, yeah, we'll probably do the more accessible stuff first.
Yes. I think we're going to burn through the new thing we have right now that we're going to be doing is our patience for that's going to run real thin real fast.
Yeah,
we're not unlimiting this.
Yeah. So I think we were talking about doing Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends next, but then I realized Madam Web is streaming on Netflix, so we're gonna have to. Have you seen Madam Web?
Nope.
Okay, so I had to make Sal watch Madam Web so we could talk about it for Spider-Versity. Nicholas Wilson says, "Hey Sal, thank you. Love back issues and Comic Pop returns."
Thanks, Nicholas. Appreciate it, man.
AKA 480 says again, what frustrated Rogue's character for me was that she was entertaining a relationship with someone as morally problematic as Magneto.
Magneto's a charismatic guy. That's what I say to that. Like he may be a problem, and he may be. I mean, like, look, I'm shocked that no one called Rogue out in the final battle where she's like, you know how the X-Men are, and I'm like,
literally last week. 2 minutes ago.
Wolverine's in a coma because of you.
Yeah.
You don't get to bump elbows with us anymore. You're on the out.
Yeah, that was the other thing. Like Sunspot and Rogue were like, we're team genocide. And then they're like, you know what? Hey, we're X-Men again. I'm like, oh my God. In the show's defense.
The fuck?
Yeah. In the show's defense, they do try and be like, hey, Bastion.
Right.
Do you want to? And it's like, listen, you guys need to fucking cool it. Sorry. I think you guys just need to let Team Genocide go. I don't know.
Can you imagine
Bastion, Magneto, anybody that's like, I'm okay with wiping out thousands of people. Maybe you just need to let these guys go.
Can you imagine like the X-Men showing up on like the White House lawn to save the day, and it's Bastion,
Yeah.
Magneto, like Apocalypse. It's just like a bunch of people who are just like, hey, we literally just tried to kill you, but now we're wearing yellow and blue outfits.
Yeah, and it's like, and again, just like you said, it's the comics, it's melodrama and everything. And it's like, listen, I know Wolverine has a problematic past, but like
most people don't know it. Like
thousands of people, guys, thousands of anyway. And then the other, and then that was with the Rogue thing. It's that in the Genosha episode where Magneto's like, I'm only going to take this job if I can coerce Rogue to be my queen.
Yes.
And everybody was like clapping and cheering online. And I'm
they're
like, this is gross, everybody.
That's what he does. That's what Magneto does. He gets away with it. You know that creepy guy in your world who you see through like it's glass.
Yeah.
And everybody else, for whatever reason, is completely fooled by him or is willing to go along for the ride, and you don't understand why.
Yeah.
That's Magneto.
That's Magneto, man, dude. Great comparison. Jones 25 full says, any chance of Gen X TV movie on Mutant Academy? We did it.
We did it.
If you look at this playlist, we did it. Boy,
we wasted our time watching that.
We did. We sure did. And speaking of young mutants, let's talk about the New Mutants. Came out in 2020. I have in my notes, I think they started doing it in like 2016, but we're gonna get there.
I know. I was gonna say I needed to know the year, so I was gonna let you handle that. Where you were gonna be like 2020's New Mutants or 2016's, depending on when they shot it.
Yeah, we're gonna get into it, man, because it is. In fact, I think I'm gonna do my best. I know I always struggle with this. I'm gonna do my best to get through the plot because I almost have as many notes for the production.
Yes, and I want to hear about that. That's the most exciting thing, because the New Mutants plot, it's actually kind of baffling that this movie is what it is and that they got away with it, because I don't know about you, I didn't hate this movie.
Dude, me neither. I will say it was a little, for me, it's a game of expectation. Going in, I was like, oh, first time, I was like, oh. And then you see, you're like, oh my God, this movie's totally watchable. So second time I'm going, this is my second time watching, I'm going, I didn't hate New Mutants. And seeing you're like, the prop was like, oh, it's not good though. It's not.
That was me. That was me as well. I had the exact same thing. I definitely saw it like when it finally got released ultimately. And I was like, I got to see this before they, I was like, I have to see this before they pull it, because I know this movie is going to be like fraught with problems. And I was like, that was okay. Like I turned to my wife and I'm like, that was pretty okay. And that Anya Taylor-Joy is going places, let me tell you. And then I saw it again. I think it was like in a hotel one time, and I was like, and I was like 20 minutes in. I'm like, that's enough.
Yeah, it's all about expectation. My expectation were probably a little too high going in the second time. And you'll have to help me because I'm not, other than the broadest of strokes, I know the Demon Bear is beloved and exists. And this is one of those. This reminded me a lot of, which I think this is a Claremont story too.
Yes.
In that 97, X-Men 97, the life death story, and I'm like, we're fighting a demon owl now. What are we doing? What's happening?
Yeah, Claremont loves this crap.
It's like whenever like ninjas are showing up and they're getting Japanese stuff, it's like, this is Miller, right? This is Frank Miller.
That's Frank Miller.
This is him, right?
Right. It has to be.
Yeah. We're getting like indigenous, like. This makes it sound mean when I say it like this, but it's like this is a white guy writing indigenous lore. Like that's what we're doing.
Oh yeah, no, and look,
British? Is it Claremont British?
Claremont thinks he's British.
Okay, got it.
Claremont was born in Britain or in England, and then raised, I think, in Canada, and then moved to emigrated to the United States. He's a child of three worlds, all of which are predominantly white. But he is also. Yes, he identifies as being British.
Yeah.
But if you talk to him, he has an American accent.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's fine. Whatever. This movie, the one we're talking about, New Mutants, adaptation of the Demon Bear arc in the New Mutants.
Yeah.
That was our first one, huh? Anyway, okay.
I know, right?
It was directed by Josh Boone, who also did The Fault in Our Stars, and was written by Josh Boone and Nate Lee. The synopsis is 5 young mutants, just discovering their abilities while held in a secret facility against their will, fight to escape their past sins and save themselves. On Rotten Tomatoes is at 36% and an audience score of 56%, rendering a list of potentially explosive ingredients mostly inert. The New Mutants is a franchise spinoff that's less than the sum of its super-powered parts. So let's get into it. This is I don't remember if they had this, because I don't think they announced the 20th Century Studios branding when this dropped, but the version I watched on Disney Plus
Had
was not Fox. It was 20th Century Studios. So there's no
That's right.
X to goof
No
around
X.
with.
Yeah. I don't remember if they had it or not in the
Yeah.
previous. I think they didn't because it was already post-acquisition, and they didn't want it to be they were like, "No.
It was probably like Hulu original or something like that. Whatever, man.
Right?
Props to them that they didn't Batgirl this and just like set it on fire and throw it
I
away.
was really I think that was definitely in the conversation. I think the conversation was definitely like, well, could we just shelve it forever?
Yeah, I honestly I think if this has somehow been a post Batgirl joint, they would have.
Yes.
Wait,
we could do that? We can legally do that?
Yeah.
No,
Damn
you
it.
can't.
Yeah,
but
you
they
should
did anyway.
do that. So we get an opening monologue that's inside every person is two bears, and I have my notes. I thought it was two wolves, but I guess we're doing a thing with bears. So
We're doing a thing with bears. Yeah.
Bears. It's bears. We are introduced to Danny as her home gets fucked up real bad. There's explosions and things being tossed. Later, she is told a tornado does this, even though clearly
It's a bear.
not. It's a bear. It's a big old demon bear.
Big old demon bear.
Her dad gets killed in the process. She gets conked out. She wakes up in a hospital bed, and she's like chained to the bed, and she sees Arya Stark peering at her through the vents. I loved you in Game of Thrones, and then she scurries away. By the way, Maisie Williams is really good in this.
Everyone is good.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is that this is a stacked cast.
Yeah.
And it is all the reasons why this movie is okay.
Yep.
And the fact that like it's competently shot. Like it's not they didn't it wasn't like it was shot like the movie Domino starring
Keira Knightley. Yeah.
Where I'm like, ugh, and it's got an ugly
Tony
filter
Scott.
on it. Yeah, like that's the movie where I was like, I left. It's one of the few movies I've ever walked out on. It was like I think I had 10 minutes left, and I'm like, I'm out.
Domino's a Tony Scott joint, right?
Yeah, it's got to be. But
listen, man, I like Denzel Washington's Man on Fire, but it's like we're clearly trying something here with all this quick cutting, zooming in,
all this crap.
Yeah.
It's just hard to watch, and but this movie was easy to watch, and the cast is like amazing. I was amazed.
Incredible.
I didn't know I didn't watch Game of Thrones, so I was like, Maisie Williams, who is this? She's amazing.
It's good. Game of Thrones is good. I'll even defend the finale, unlike most people. We meet Dr. Reyes, and this is where she tells her what happened to her home was a tornado. And we know that Danny is dealing with survivor's guilt because the characters say that she's dealing with survivor's guilt.
Yep.
And this will be a trend through this movie where people will just be like, Roberto has a line later where he's like, "Don't worry, I could give you $1 million. My parents are good for it."
Right.
Because they're rich. And it's like, we get it, man. Like,
we get
it, dude.
Yeah, because they're rich. Yes. I'm with you.
When she's sitting here going like, "Oh no, I feel bad because I'm alive and they're dead," and Dr. Reyes is like, "Yeah, well, survivor's guilt." Like, come on.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
It feels, I mean, like, I don't remember how much, and we'll get into like the ins and outs, because I deliberately didn't look up any of like the production stuff.
Yeah.
But I assume there's a lot of like reshoots, and I feel like there's a lot of like extra credit where they're like, it's gonna go over their heads. You got to really hammer it in.
Well, we'll get into that. The reshoots process is interesting, and I don't know that I completely have wrapped my mind around it. So anyway, Dr. Reyes says she works for someone who's able to find new mutants when they emerge. This is clearly supposed to make you think of Professor X, to the point that later Roberto's like, "Oh, we know who it is."
And I'm like, how do you know? Are they X-Men superheroes in this universe now?
Dude, I would love to have them try and square the circle of when does this land in the X-Men timeline.
Oh yeah. No, that's just like unforgivable.
Yeah.
What the identity of the X-Men is.
Yep.
Does this happen like before Logan or after? Like, what is happening?
Am I crazy? Didn't they take footage directly from Logan of the kids in the lab?
They sure did.
I think we'll get into it when we get to behind the scenes. I think I know why they did that. And it's not because it's supposed to be in the timeline, but that totally threw me for a loop. I'm like, sorry, is this a Logan prequel?
Yeah. Yeah. I think it is.
We meet the rest of the kids in a group therapy session. We are introduced to Sam, Ilyana, Rain, and Roberto, otherwise known as Cannonball, Magic. What is it? Wolfsbane, and Sunspot in the comics. And Ilyana has a little Lockheed puppet which is super annoying until it becomes super fucking cool later in the movie.
And the trailer ruined it for me. I remember when the trailer came out, and oh, by the way, my
Yeah.
local movie theater, it's an AMC, but it's also the crappiest. I love how like in my area I have like these like established like storied brands, and they're also the worst version. Like we have this we have this acai place, and it's like a brand. There's like 1,000 in my state, and my town has the worst one. But they have these giant like half building sized wall scrolls. When New Mutants was going to come out, they put up the poster. It was up until 2022.
Great. Well, I mean, pandemic.
Every year, every day, I'm like, there's the movie that we're never going to see at this movie theater.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Do you? So at your AMC, do you get those people that think it's super cute to like clap and cheer when Nicole Kidman shows up in that opening thing, or is that an LA thing?
It has happened once or twice. Mostly when it was like a TikTok trend. But the last 2 or 3 times we've gone, most people just kind of like chuckle to themselves or groan.
Yeah, man. It's in movie town out here, people think it's super fucking cool to clap and cheer when Nicole Kidman shows up, and you're like, you all need to fucking calm down.
There's a slightly modified version. I don't know if they reshot it or if they made a different version when they shot the original version, but they released a shorter version of it. Unbeknownst to the audience, I remember people being kind of like ready to make fun of it, but then it switched. Like she said something else. And that really threw the whole audience. Like I remember everyone going like, huh? And that's what started the murmurs. People were like, what's happening? Like, can I slide? Am I in another reality?
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's wild. So they're in this group therapy. The other kids, specifically Ileana and Roberto, are real mean to Danny for inexplicable reasons. I mean, just
because they have to be, but they can't be too mean because they have to be heroes later. But
because we have to root for them later. Danny tries to run away, but there's a force field around the property. We will later learn that Dr. Reyes is doing this, and it's because she's like she sleeps at points, but the force field still. I don't understand the nature of because we see Dr. Reyes make force fields, so we presume that she's the one generating the force field. But I don't know the rules of the force field.
Yeah, I thought that they were like that they were a machine, that you were meant to think she's a mutant, but actually she's not, and she's using technology or something like that. But like, no, she makes force fields.
Yeah. She makes force fields, and even when she's unconscious, the force fields remain. Whatever. Danny this doesn't go great for Danny. She's going to jump off the clock tower to be with her family. And Rain talks her down. This Rain Danny scenes are the best scenes in this movie.
It's like I remember actually kind of not that I was like, this is brave. This is a brave movie. Are you? Do we want to pat each other on the back about how brave this movie is? But I was like, wow, this is a franchise picture that stars a cavalcade of young talent, and the only romance plot in it is gay. That's kind of cool and distinctly X-Men. Way to go. And it was shelved.
It was shelved, right? Yeah, it was shelved. And I think another cool thing about it is there's no like, the movie doesn't feel the need to comment on it. It's just like, this is what's happening. And nobody's like, what?
And it's not like the new Ghostbusters movie where it's like, well, maybe they're just super best friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like if you ask China, they're just friends.
They're just friends, exactly.
And it's like, I don't know anybody who would literally have their soul ripped out of their bodies just to hang out with their friend physically.
Sure, Ghostbusters. So this is where this clock tower scenes where they start making eyes at each other. Like Rain helps her back in, they get close. Yeah. And I think I remember when I first saw it, I was like, oh, we're doing something here. And then it's like, oh no, yeah, we really are. It's not even
making out. And I'm like,
it's not even like subtext. We're just doing it.
No, and it's like it was tastefully shot. Like I remember that that scene of them in the field is just like such a refreshing and youthful and genuine scene. Like it captures the experience. And of course, like I believe the person who made this made Fault in Our Stars. So I'm like, oh yeah, okay, well I understand.
Yeah, it makes you want. I can't believe I'm saying this, and it made me wish they leaned into the YA stuff more.
Yeah,
that's where the movie felt the most confident. Yes, and they have a perfect setup. Like the cast is supposed to be younger. I don't know that if here they're supposed to be high school age, but in the comics are typically high school or they start high school age. And you've got a perfect setup. You've got Danny and Rain, and then you've got they don't really lean into it, but you've got the makings of an interesting love triangle with Magic, Sunspot, and Cannonball that you could get like endless amounts of mileage out of.
Totally.
So we see Sam, quote unquote, practice his cannonball powers, or maybe he's trying to hurt himself. We know that because Rain says she thinks he's maybe trying to hurt himself.
Yeah, that was rough. The cannonball stuff is like, especially because you, like me, are remember Cannonball to be kind of like a fun, loving, freewheeling character, and this guy is just all about self harm and like survivor's guilt.
Yeah,
I was just like, I mean, look, if you're gonna do that, Charlie Heaton is the actor to play it.
Yeah. Yep.
And I also, yeesh.
Yeah, totally. And I like what we kind of set up here in the, because obviously Cannonball and Sunspot are good friends in the comics.
Yeah.
The kind of like culture clash there of like Roberto's super rich, Sam isn't. Yep. And again, it's kind of like maybe bench a lot of the horror stuff and just like lean into the Breakfast Club stuff more.
Yeah.
I think there's more here for that, or at least you're more dialed into that.
Yeah, I agree. I just, no notes on that. I like that idea.
Yeah. So we get a scene with Roberto and Sam hang out in the laundry room. This is where we get Roberto's like, I'll bet you $1 million. And Sam's like, I couldn't even pay that. And Roberto's like, I could.
Because I'm rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Spooky shit starts happening. There's a scene in the laundry room where Sam sees a flaming hand, and I can guarantee, like in the laundry machine, and it like blows up or whatever. And I feel super confident there was Roberto seeing a flaming hand in the laundry machine in the trailer. And so I think this was retooled.
Well, maybe, I mean, because there's also this whole like undercurrent of it's about people seeing each other's problems. Like, everybody else has to deal with Magic's crap, so it could be that like everybody else's stuff is leaking into, it's like, yes, it would make thematic sense if everybody was facing their own fears, but this is a movie where all their fears are out and running around, and everyone has to deal with each other's fears, which also links them together, makes them more of a family.
This is definitely like a post-it movie. When did the this is a post-it.
Let's see.
The pandemic messed up my brain. Those movies had to be pre-pandemic.
2017.
So yeah. So it's like, your fears are,
your fears are manifest. Oh no.
Sure. Yeah. Oh no. Well, maybe stop being afraid of them. Well,
well, we're children.
We're children. There's a scene where we're in the showers and we see Rain is branded with a W, which one presumably it's for witch, because the guy, a priest, says she's a witch, because I guess she's not just from like Scotland or wherever, she's from the 1600s.
The witch thing, I was like, really?
Yeah.
Like,
even the mind stuff with Sam, it's like, I don't think it's a bunch of guys and pickaxes anymore so much as like dynamite and explosives and stuff. Maybe it just feels, I don't know.
It was weird. It was a weird choice.
Yeah. In the common room, the kids are watching Buffy, specifically a lesbian smooch from Buffy, because again, this movie doesn't believe in subtext.
No, it's true.
Hey, this is what we're doing. This is Buffy shit. All right.
Right. This is who motivates us. And like, all right. I mean, you know what? Fine.
Yeah. To the point we get 2 times in the common room where like Buffy's playing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like a marathon.
Mm-hmm. That's not bad. That's not a bad marathon.
That's a cool marathon. Yeah.
Ileana and Danny get into a fight, and Danny busts out her soul sword. Reyes stops it with her. This is where we learn she has shield powers. She splits them up, sends Ileana to a room, and this is where we see Ileana has a memory of the Smiling Men. This will never be clarified.
Nope.
Or explain, like, is this what they really looked like, or is this how she remembers them looking?
Yeah.
Where they come from? None of this matters to the movie.
No, but it is cool.
Yeah.
It's rad. I really like them leaning into it, and I love their design. I love how creepy they are, and I kind of love that they're not explaining it.
Yeah,
it's just scary and weird.
I think I just wish the movie, and I think there's reasons for this when we get into the backstory. I wish it was either flushed out or dialed in just a bit. Like it feels like it needs just another pass or two to like really lock things in.
That's totally fair.
Danny has a vision of a demon bear. As Reyes takes a blood sample from Danny, she talks about how baby rattlesnakes are more dangerous because they don't know how to control their venom. Is the way when I was a kid and I lived in Arizona, the way I was explained was because they haven't used so much of it. I'm going to assume both of these are not true. Both of these are just stories adults tell kids that they heard one
Stay away
time.
from them.
Yeah. Let me know in the chat. Are baby rattlesnakes actually more dangerous than adult rattlesnakes, or is that just a folktale?
Yeah, that would be useful to know. I mean, Dr. Reyes is a liar and a monster, so she certainly would. It's not like we're going to add lying to her list of crimes.
Yeah. Is Dr. Reyes, because Dr. Reyes is from the comics? Is she a bad lady in the comics?
I don't know her.
Okay.
This is a blind spot for me. I was just like, all right, Dr. Reyes, moving on.
Yeah, sure. The kids go up to the attic and play with a lie detector. And again, like they hook it up to Roberto, and they truth or dare. Well, it can only be truth, because that's a lie detector. It's like, God, we know, guys, we know. It's just these little extra lines, like we're with it, we get it.
Yeah, like yeah. Like, how can you handle this like actual, frank and earnest love story with any poise and sincerity, but also you don't trust us to know what they're doing? I mean, Meet the Parents came out 25 years ago. Like, I know what a lie detector test is.
Yeah.
I knew what it was before that too, but that was on the poster.
Yes. So they're jerking up each other off upstairs. No.
Yeah, big time. Yeah,
big time.
they're just
They're
exploring
all,
each other's bodies. Yeah.
Danny tells the story of her bear pendant, and it relates to the demon bear. Something that it's small when you're born, whatever.
Big when you get scared or something.
Sure.
Yeah,
whatever.
You add to it, whatever.
Yeah.
Not what the demon bear is in the comics, but who cares? Whatever.
Yeah, the demon bear in the comics is kind of like an abstract entity. It's just using the form of the demon, the bear. But that's not necessarily what it literally is, right?
It's not a literal bear. I mean, it is literally a bear, but only because like that's what Sienkiewicz wanted to draw.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's like up there with like the Shadow King, and then it's like an astral entity kind of thing, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So Ileana claims to have killed 18 men. Later Reyes is conked out because Ileana spiked her tea with what and how, it is unclear.
Moving on. I mean, it is, what's it called? Like, it's it's theoretically a hospital. They might have some kind of a Dramamine or sedative of some kind. Although, since they're children and they're not doctors, it's like, I spiked her drink and she died.
The movie takes a hard turn. Like, oh shit. It's like,
I don't know about dosage.
Yeah, don't tell Professor X the babysitter's dead. Like, oh my God, we gotta hide.
Don't tell Chuck the babysitter's dead.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. New version of the movie.
The kids are hanging out. Roberto suggests that this is where he suggests that the person she works for is Professor X. We learned that Sam freaked out in a mine, and he did his cannonball thing and accidentally killed his dad, because everybody in this movie has a tragic
killed someone.
Yeah,
basically murdered someone.
Murdered somebody. Manslaughter. Come on, be fair. Manslaughter.
Oh yeah, someone had to die. Like, it's not like I burned someone and they got hurt. Like, no, they died. I killed someone.
Yeah, man, that's the Roberta one. It's like it's just full on. You immolate, or what is it? You burn her alive?
Yeah, you know what that is, by the way. Like, that is, you know what that is. That's a conversation in the room where they were like, oh, so Danny kills someone, blah blah blah, and they're like, well, I mean, not for nothing, but like, no one on the crew is a murderer besides Ileana. And they're like, well, okay, we'll just ratchet it up where they all have to be equally culpable for the same crime, so that no one has a moral opposition, or no one has a moral high ground over anyone else.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but at the same time, it's also like pretty dark.
Yeah. This is pretty. And again, they're trying to do that horror thing,
but it could also be they're like, we're going for the Deadpool thing. We're gonna get that R rating. You know?
Man. Deadpool and Logan really threw them for a loop of like, how can we be different now? Which I like the instinct.
It's
instinct. It's just, when it comes to Dark Phoenix and New Mutants, I don't know.
Yeah, their instincts.
So Rain leads Danny through the vents out to the outside, where they watch Rain hit the force field and they make out. It's a very sweet scene.
It is.
Rain in the middle of it, Rain's eyes go like yellow, And what's weird, they don't look like dogs. Her eyes don't become dog's eyes. They become like monster eyes. Like, I don't know how it relates to her powers.
Yeah. Well, because she's not a dog. I mean, in this movie she is, but like, she's a werewolf.
Yeah.
She's a literal like universal monster.
I love how like off the rails the mutant abilities get. Like, what do you have? Werewolf powers? Or then you meet like somebody like Forge, you're like, I can invent anything. What does that even mean, man? What are we doing?
And what does evolution think that means?
Yeah. And how does that? And also, how do we think evolution works?
Right. Oh, we just don't.
Yeah.
We just don't know.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah.
So meanwhile, Ileana and Roberto are making out in the pool. He starts to get too hot. We find out that he burned his girlfriend to death, which is horrifying. And then we see Ileana's actually in her room, and Roberto is being haunted by his ex. And then like he flames on, and then Reyes comes in and like dumps him into the pool, and he like vaporizes half the pool. That was a pretty good visual where he's like jumped into a full pool, and then once the steam lifts, it's like 1/3 of the pool water is left.
Yeah.
I will say this. We've had Sunspot in this, and we've had Sunspot in Days of Future Past.
Oh, yeah. He was, and what a rich, interesting character he was in that.
He was in Days of Future Past. We have a hard time visualizing Sunspot.
Yes.
Because they just make him look like Human Torch, but like lava, I guess. Like, what if his skin was like the black lava rock?
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not, you guys, he can't just be black with the spots. We can't. Does that not look good? Have we tried that?
I don't know. Because I love it. I love like him just being a void covered in Kirby crackles. Like I think that's awesome. But yeah.
They don't like it. They don't like it, or maybe they tried it and like it doesn't work.
It could just not read.
Yeah. So Reyes drugs Danny to study her, and Danny has visions of, again, this is where we get like, it looks like literal eclipse taken from the facility X-23 was in Logan.
Yeah.
Rain is in the shower. She has a vision of the priest that attacks her, and he brands her again with the W.
Monsignor, like
yeah. And then he brands her on the neck, but it's upside down, the W, so it's an M. And we know shit's serious because it doesn't go away.
Yeah, that was also like, I was like, it didn't go away.
Yeah. Shit's real. The visions are real, man.
Yeah.
Ileana attacks Danny and puts her in the hell dimension. You're like, DJ, why did Ileana attack Danny? I don't have it in my notes, and I do not remember.
Yeah, I don't know. It just
no, because at this point, Ileana's like, it's her fault. It's her powers that are doing this. She's not wrong. She's correct. That is what's happening.
Oh yeah, no, she's right to be mad.
Yeah. So we go to Limbo, and then Danny uses her powers to look like one of the smiling men, and Ileana tells Danny that I'm going to be honest with you, Sal, this confuses me a little bit. Yeah. Ileana tells Danny that Limbo is a place that she and Lockheed made up, and it's, quote, their happy place.
Yeah.
And I don't know if anybody told her that it looks like hell. I don't know why that her happy place looks like hell.
She calls it hell later, and it's weird. Also, it's weird how far we go and yet not, because it's like, yeah, you made it up.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Right.
And I think, this is where you could use a little more explanation, where it's like, it was my happy place, but a bunch of bad shit happened to me, so now it looks like this because it reflects my interior space.
And that would make sense. I mean, again, it could be that's what it is. I don't know. It's weird.
Ileana's also weird because we see her drawn with crowns a lot, and it's like she's an adult. She's like a grown-up person.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come off. I think it's supposed to be meant as like quirky and like maybe she's repressed a little bit, but that's not how it reads. It reads as just like you wrote this for a child, but you have an adult playing it.
Yes, and that's exactly right.
Yeah. We see that Reyes is working for, drumroll please, the Essex Corporation.
Hey, remember that? They really want that. They're really working on that.
Oh, they want it so bad.
But they also don't want to do anything with it. They just keep teasing it. It's like they have no idea. They're in their defense. It's one of those things where, and maybe this is more a reflection of where I was at when I was younger. Mr. Sinister, like a lot of great villains, has a great look. Like he's basically mutant vampire guy. Yeah, he looks great.
If you'd asked me as a youngster what's his deal, I'd be like, Magneto, magnet powers, mutant superiority, got it. Apocalypse, survival of the fittest. His powers unclear.
Many.
Many. That's still a little ambiguous. Mr. Sinister looks like a vampire. You know what I mean? That's basically it. And it's not until like for me at least as a reader, it's not until the Krakoa era and then X-Men 97 like, okay, we've kind of dialed in Sinister's jam. We kind of like we've cracked it.
They really have. Like at this point, Sinister's a lot more well defined, even though his history is insane and like he's been around forever.
Yeah, that was something I feel like that was something with a lot of what the show did well with condensing stuff with X-Men 97. It's like we couldn't have done another pass on Bastion's history to make it like make any amount of sense. We could have done.
Be nice.
Because you guys just explained it in like 5 minutes, and I don't understand. I don't know what his deal is. Was he a mutant? Was he machine,
I don't remember. I remember
machine bugs. What are we doing, guys?
All I remember is like when he was invented hastily, and they didn't know when they first created him.
Scott Lobdell creation, I believe.
Yeah, that does not surprise me at all.
Mm-hmm. And that was the one where like, no, we can't touch Scott Lobdell's vision. It has to be what it is.
Oh yeah, no.
So Danny reveals that she saw Rhea's mind when she was being experimented on to Reign, and they plan to escape. I have in my notes they're cute together.
They are indeed.
They are indeed. Reyes is going to quote run tests on Danny, aka kill her. Was her. That's what Essex, Mr. Sinister, wants her to do. Meanwhile, the others are attacked by smiling men from Illyana's backstory. And what's interesting is even though Illyana has a kick-ass soul sword, even though Illyana can go to a hell dimension of her own making, even though Illyana claims to have killed 18 men, presumably these men from her memory, the second she sees one, she devolves into a crying mess. And it's like, aren't these the guys she killed? Doesn't she already killed these guys once before?
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. There's something there, but yeah, because she really puts on a veneer of like toughness and solid, like solitude.
Yeah.
You get this idea that she's this like island of awesome, but when her actual fears or when she's faced with the reality of what she's done or what she's been through, she devolves into a little kid. It's a girl who maybe is written for being younger than she is, but maybe it's a girl who grew up faster than she wanted to and doesn't have all the processing power of an adult to be able to go like, these are manifestations of my fear. Like, these are, it's just, I'm back to where I was when I was assaulted by these monsters. And it's like, right on. And I assume they're also, the people didn't look like that.
Didn't look like
these are her mind creating these things. And I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. And maybe I was presuming the 18 men she killed was in the process of escaping. Maybe these guys were again, I feel like we could do a little bit more explaining on Illyana's black story to justify some of what happens here. Because maybe they were having her kill people for them or something. And then she just escaped. So she never really processed this. I just assumed when she's like, I killed 18 men. I was like, well, it's probably, she's here now. So it's probably these guys, right?
That's fair.
Reign attacks Reyes and like fucks her up. Like fucks. Reyes is not looking so hot. The gang regroups and discovers that they weren't here to be like, it's not like an X-Men situation where it's trained how to better control your powers. They are meant to be killers. They're meant to be weapons.
Yeah.
Which works, I think, with the backstories. Again, like you pointed out, it is like a little grim that like all of these characters have manslaughtered somebody.
Yeah.
But it works for what we're doing for this.
Yeah.
They go after Reyes, and she almost crushes them with her shield powers, and then Demon Bear shows up and fucks up her day.
He sure does.
Yeah, she doesn't get out of this one, gang. Sorry for Dr. Reyes fans out there.
Yeah.
Illyana goes to fight the Demon Bear.
Which is cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. Illyana comes off pretty fucking cool in this movie. And the others are like, wait, it'll kill her because it's magic. And she responds, so am I. Because that's her. Did you get? That's her name in the comics, guys.
That's her name in the comics, and has made and there's been no indication that she is magic in any other way.
No, that's another. Her and Scarlet Witch. Again, with the weird mutant power, like, wait, what? So your mutant ability is just magic? Then what's Doctor Strange? Is Doctor Strange? what does this mean?
Yeah, just don't think about it.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. By the way,
Especially in
guys,
this world, they're like magic.
yeah,
We haven't even touched that.
I just realized, guys, that I have, and here's the smiling men for those watching.
Yay!
Yay!
I prefer them with the masks on.
Yeah. This is a more generic monster thing. They got like a whole like Russian mob tattoo thing going on here for anybody that saw Eastern Promises. And also, so she has her magic sword, her soul sword, and she also has full on Lockheed, baby.
Yay! Now, what? I assume it's like if you put him like, I don't know. Is it really a doll, and when she brings it through limbo it becomes real? Is it really from real? Is it from limbo, and when you bring it to the real world it becomes a doll? What?
Again, you gave the secret. Don't think about it. Don't
That's right. You're
think
right.
about it. It's
I
just
don't know
cool
what I
that
was
we got
thinking.
Lockheed, baby.
It was cool.
Where does
Yeah.
Lockheed come? Because I usually associate Lockheed with Kitty Pryde.
Yes, me too. I definitely did not expect Magic to be the one to debut Lockheed. But yeah, I always assumed that he was a magic creation, that he was like not from like a planet, that he's actually just like a being that existed from like, another place. I never really knew what Lockheed's situation is. Apparently, Lockheed is an extraterrestrial race that has dragon-like, and are capable of traveling through space via special astral ships which transport their essences. So yeah.
I mean, of course, man, of course.
Naturally, as you do.
We should have known.
So yeah, yeah.
My introduction to Lockheed was that prior to the X-Men, where he's like hanging out with Magneto for some reason until he switches sides. I'm down with magic. I'm down with him being a magic creation and showing up in this. And this does make me bummed that like we didn't get more of this, because we could have had like an X-Men universe where like Lockheed's around. We could have gotten Dupe eventually.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
I guess we still can.
Yeah, we could always get Dupe. That's a given.
But like Lockheed's is just around. He's just here. You know what I mean? Like Anyway, Lockheed is in New Mutants, and that's good enough for me.
Yeah, it's cool. It's neat that he's there.
Yes,
I can't believe they even did it.
Yeah, for real. So basically the Demon Bear shows up, and this is an opportunity for everybody to team up and fight him while basically Danny sleeps in her soul palace or whatever. She gets a pep talk from her ghost dad, and she wakes up and calms the bear down. Like she's like, hey man, fucking cool it.
Yep.
And he does. And that's gang, that's basically it. That's New Mutants. They're like, cool, I guess no harm, no foul.
Yeah.
We're gonna, now the force field's down, and we're gonna just walk until
we get to Westchester, New York or something. I don't know. Because they're
that.
like, maybe we'll go to the X-Men. And I'm like, you won't.
Which one? Who are you gonna see? Is it gonna be Patrick Stewart? Back to that Deadpool joke. Is it Patrick Stewart or fucking
James McAvoy?
James McAvoy. So let's get into the behind the scenes of this. I'm not gonna lie, gang. Most of this is just shit I pulled from Wikipedia. But there's a lot here, so I'm gonna do my best to roll through it.
Yeah,
and
because I'm always curious. I'm very curious about how this became what it was, why it was shelved for so long. I mean, it had to have been just because of the Disney acquisition, and then just going like, we don't know how to market it.
Yeah, it definitely didn't help. So after completing work on the 2014 film The Fault in Our Stars for 20th Century Fox, director Josh Boone created a comic book with his childhood best friend Nate Lee, using panels from Cliff Claremont and Bill Sienkiewicz, right?
Sienkiewicz, yes.
Sienkiewicz, yeah. New Mutants comic to illustrate what a potential film trilogy adapting those comics would look like. The pair have been fans growing up. So they make this like comic pitch deck.
Yep.
And they sell Fox on it. Fox finalized the deal to have Boone direct the New Mutants from a script from himself and Lee, with Kimberg and Donner producing. The film was initially intended to expand the universe of the X-Men franchise and take place 3 years after X-Men Apocalypse.
Yes.
So we're technically between Apocalypse, or the initial plan was between Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix.
Yep.
So I guess we're dealing with McAvoy era, because McAvoy was said to have had a significant role in the movie, alongside, weirdly, Alexander Shipp, who played Storm in Apocalypse.
Huh.
In May of 2016. So guys, this movie came out in 2020. We're in May of 2016 right now in the timeline.
Yeah.
Kimber confirmed that the script would include Professor X, and he stated his hope for the filming to start in 2017. By August, the titular team's roster had expanded to include the character Warlock, which is stupid. Like, I think Warlock is great, but it's like too much, guys. Too much. Are you going to do the phalanx and all that? What are you doing?
Yeah, no, I genuinely, I was like, they would make him a mutant. They'd just be like, no, my mutant power is I can turn into a monster, like alien robots.
We were just talking about how wild it is, but I remember that makes me think about, did you see the most recent Mortal Kombat movie?
Yes.
It was awful. And one of the things I hated about it was like, oh, Kano's cybernetic eye? That's magic now. And it's like, what do you fucking Jax's robot arms? Magic.
Right. Yeah. There's a lot I have a problem with when it comes to that movie. But yes. Yeah. I was like, what?
Warlock is a mutant. Does it work?
No,
it doesn't work.
But also, like, neither does having a effing phalanx. Like, I just, Warlock was always baffling to me. This concept of, like, this broken from the collective, yes, that's a neat idea. It's a fun 80s movie premise, but like, what?
Yeah. Like, I like the look of Warlock. I think my only real hang up with Warlock is different name, man. That should be Adam Warlock's jam. Warlock fits Adam Warlock better. I don't know why Warlock is called Warlock. Like, I pick a different name for him, right? Because now we're talking about Warlock. Is it Adam Warlock or Warlock the robot guy?
That's true. Yeah,
that's me. That's my only note. He's a robot man. Warlock doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So the character of Demon Bear was set as the film's main antagonist, with the project aiming for a more Stephen King meets John Hughes style horror movie. And I think if I were in that meeting, I would be like, ooh, go again. I don't, those tastes work. You're saying things. I hear you talking to me.
But I don't understand why.
I don't see the connection there.
Yeah.
That's just it, dude. You're just talking about it is what you're talking about.
Yeah. What you're saying is you want to make it. You want to make it. You want to do
it.
Which they did.
I get that. I get that instinct. Okay, so Sal, were you tuned into some of the controversy around Sunspot in this movie?
No, I've heard it after the fact. Like, I've heard about controversy regarding Sunspot, and I hear it every time Sunspot comes up.
Yeah.
Now, but back then, no, I did not know.
So the casting of Henry Zaga as Robert DaCosta was met with some controversy. Zaga, while Brazilian in real life, portrays a character who in the comics is Afro-Brazilian descent.
Yeah.
Boone stated, quote, "My goal was to cast a real Brazilian, and I saw 300 myself, black, brown, light-skinned. I saw every shade of the sun. It was the same case with Blue Hunt, who played Danny. My goal was to find the best actor who, because they've done so little work, was at least the closest to kind of what I saw in my head for the character. Maybe if Henry didn't exist, I would have found somebody who was darker skinned, who exemplified what I needed. But it was never about the color of the skin for me." He added that he was not concerned with the real life racism that existed in Brazil, and that he wanted the character to be a positive representative of the nation. And however you feel about that, I will say that's a pretty tone deaf response, man. That's a pretty tone deaf response.
Yeah. I mean, my response would have just been like, the movie failed, guys. What do you want from me?
Yeah, what do you want? We did, like,
I'm never gonna play him again, so I guess you got what you wanted. Like,
the director being like, listen, man, I believe Josh. Before I talk out of my ass, let's look up Josh Boone. But it's like, listen, guys.
Yeah, just shut up.
I'm a white American. Cast in a Brazilian guy. Sorry, gang. I fumbled the ball on that one. I think Henry's great. I think he did a great job. But I hear your concerns. That's all you need to do. Like, yeah, man, I hear you, man.
It's really easy to just give a diplomatic answer. Just be like, I was unfamiliar with the character's history when I made when I cast the role.
Yeah.
I think that in no way do I think that diminishes so and so's performance.
Mm-hmm.
But going forward, we will definitely keep the character's like history in mind when making casting decisions.
You nailed it, dude. You nailed it. That's all. It's like, it's just something that fumbled the ball. Sorry, gang.
Yeah, might be.
But I think Henry. I think he did a good job.
Yeah.
I just love I just did the version that fit in my brain. That's lighter skin like me. What are you talking? What's the problem? I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't understand why you would even have a problem.
Whatever. Anyway, so now we get into the reshoot. So Boone and his regular editors, Matthew Rundle and Rob Sullivan, delivered a cut of the film to Fox that they were very happy with, and it tested well as initial screenings of. It tested as well as initial screenings of Deadpool did.
Wow, that's
3 Yeah, that's
that
I would
sounds fake.
that's that sounds anyway. 3 days of additional photography was planned to complete the quote YA movie that Boone, Lee, and Fox had agreed to make.
Okay.
However, following the successful release of the film, the studio cut the first trailer for the New Mutants to focus on the quote scary elements from the film,
Man.
essentially selling it as a straight up horror movie. With a
Yeah.
positive reception of the preview, Fox decided to make the film more like Boone's original vision rather than completing the version that they had making during production. And I'll just say this, between this and Suicide Squad, I don't care how well received the trailer is. Don't recut the movie to fit the trailer. The trailer's a trailer, guys.
Yeah. Listen, maybe have your trailer guys on like a shorter leash.
Yeah.
And tell them like, hey, don't sell a different movie.
Yeah, don't sell a movie that we're not making, guys.
Yeah. Like, just don't sell a movie we're not making, because we can't back that up.
Yeah. So in January 2018, the film release was pushed back to February of 2019. This allowed to avoid Deadpool 2. And then and it also allowed for reshoots the studio required to make the film more. And I will say, in this, again, pulling from all the Wikipedia sources, there's a lot of talk about like Boone's original vision and what is Boone's original vision, to the point that it's kind of meaningless. So I don't know what they're, because it sounded like the YA thing was the original vision, but now the horror thing is the original vision. Whatever. Additional photography was scheduled for mid 2018. It was expected to include the addition of several new characters who would appear throughout the film rather than just making cameo appearances. In March of 2018, Fox again delayed the film's release, this time to distance it from Dark Phoenix.
Oh yeah, that would have, I would have done the same, because that movie sucks.
At this point, the studio believed that reshoots were required more. The reshoots required were more extensive than previously considered. With the intention of to reshoot at least half of the film. The intent was to make the film as distinct from other entries in the series as possible, looking towards Deadpool and Logan.
Right.
They believe the film would not endure a similar fate to the 2015 Fantastic Four, which went through similar production issues and became a flop.
Yep.
With the issues not being placed on Boone, allowing him to write. They basically, it's like, this won't be like Fantastic Four. I know we keep pushing it and we keep reshooting it, but I'm sure it'll all be fine.
Yeah,
this movie is better than that. This movie
is better than that. No one looks drastically different from what they do scene to scene, like in Fantastic Four. But I don't understand why that is in any way still a standard practice. I mean, like, at that point, there has to be, like, are there any level-headed studio executives at this point who, when they get this idea, when they're like, so the movie isn't what we thought, and we're going to need like an additional half the budget to like reshoot it to salvage it. At that point you go, well, I mean, it's still a movie though, right? Like, it's a movie that'll come out. Like, how many people think that, like, Meet the Fockers is a good movie? Like, just put it out. It'll save us so much more money if we don't double the budget. Like, why is that in any way a conversation? And I guess it's because they're all trying to chase that $1 billion price tag. They all think they're like, we don't know the difference between any franchise, particularly superhero bent like movie. Like, we don't understand why they're good. We don't understand why they're successful. So the reality is, every time you make a superhero movie, it could potentially make $1 billion. Which is just so insane.
I think it's that, because I think you're 100% right, because I know in a lot of the postmortems on Madam Web, I saw a lot of like, is it superhero fatigue? And it's like, did you see the movie? That's not why. I'm not saying superhero fatigue isn't a thing. I'm just saying that's not the reason Madam Web.
That ain't the reason. That isn't Madam Web's fault.
And like you said, that tells me you guys don't know what makes this different than like Iron Man. Like, you just don't know.
So messed up. Like, it's like, well, I understand you all liked Avengers. Why didn't you go see Madam Web?
Aren't they the same? I think the other thing is in that it's now that everything's these interconnected franchises, you can't just release a movie because that might negatively impact your other things. And it's like, just let the movie be the movie. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you.
In addition to adjusting the tone of the film through reshoots, they also plan to change an antagonist subplot in the film, originally intended to feature the the Essex Corporation, which was first teased in X-Men Apocalypse, with a post-credit scene featuring the reveal of John Hamm as the villain, Mr. Sinister.
Oh, I like that.
Fox requested the reshoots to include a new post-credit scene introducing Antonio Banderas as Sunspot's father.
Okay.
Kinberg later denied that an actor was ever cast as Mr. Sinister when he revealed that the character had been was intended to be included in the canceled Gambit film. Ham later revealed that while they were in talks to have him play Mr. Sinister, his scenes were never filmed.
Right.
Following the acquisition of Fox by Disney in March of 2019, it was revealed that the additional photography had still not taken place, nor were they, quote, planned so far. The work was dependent on Boone's involvement, and the studio pushed the film's release back to April 3rd, 2020. What could go right? There's nothing going to happen between now and April 2020.
Yeah, now's our time.
And the reshoots were set to take place later in 2019. In August 2019, Disney was reported to be unimpressed with the original cut of the New Mutants, believing it had, quote, limited box office potential. Additional work was completed after Disney acquired it to align the film with Boone's original vision. Here we go again. The test screenings with these changes had been positive. In addition to making the film more horror-tinged, these changes also included removing overt connections to the X-Men films.
What?
Boone explained that work on the film had altered when Disney's acquisition of Fox had begun, and so no reshoots ever took place on the film. Not even standard pickups that had already been scheduled during initial production. At the time, around 75% of the film had been edited, while much of the film's visual effects were also not finished. By the time the acquisition was completed, Boone had moved on and was about to begin work on the new television series, The Stand. Before he started production on that series, Disney asked Boone if he would return to finish the film. The work required to finish the film when Boone returned. So here's what I understand.
Yeah.
We've pushed.
Yep.
We want these amount of reshoots. We've recut what we have to make it more of a horror movie. We're trying to figure out what reshoots we want, but no reshoots have happened.
Right. That's interesting. Because there definitely are reshoots in this movie.
Disney has it. So the work required to finish the film when Boone returned involved completing the visual effects and editing alongside co-writer Lee, which took several months. Reshoots for the film could have been scheduled at that point, but Boone found that the 3-year wait since principal photography meant the young cast had aged too much. Yes. He also felt it did not make sense to add the post-credit scene of Banderas since it was unlikely they would be able to make a sequel now that Disney owned the X-Men rights and was integrating the property into the MCU. That's a smart call.
I can't even imagine Disney being like, oh, we're releasing. No, this will just go out on a new streaming service and we'll just move on.
You're lucky it's seeing the light of day.
Yeah.
Describing returning to the film after so long, Boone said we hadn't seen it in a year. We did a bunch of things here and there that we hadn't thought about or noticed a year before. The visual effects that still needed to be finished included Illyana's sorceress abilities, including the soul sword that she materializes, as well as her dragon companion Lockheed. After the film was completed, Boone reunited the cast for the first official screening in New York, after which Maisie Williams stated, "The movie's exactly the movie we set out to make."
Oh, that's nice.
So if I'm to understand this correctly, and I do kind of feel like it in the movie, there were no reshoots. We kept kicking this ball down the field, and so we did principal photography, and that's why in some ways it feels kind of incomplete,
right?
And so because we never brought the cast back, we never did the reshoots. Let's see if I can get. I meant to do this before. New Mutants director explains why there were no reshoots. Yeah, it sounds like they did not do any reshoots for this movie.
Okay. It could be just ADR then.
It could be ADR. There may be been some pickups they did later, but there's no official reshoots. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool.
No reshoots took place. That's so wild. And it's one of those. So this, in some ways, this is actually a really good case study of why reshoots happen. I think you're right, Sal. I think when you're like, okay, well, let's reshoot half the movie. Well, you're done.
Just put out the old movie. You're done. Yeah, you don't get to do it. You don't get a do-over.
But you do need. There is something that happens when you see, you put it on paper, you see the vision, and then as you're filming, different things are happening. Like it's such a runaway train, the filmmaking process.
Yeah,
and you're putting together. I heard. I wish I could remember who said this, but I know somebody, and I think this is a fairly famous quote, said at the beginning of making a movie, you're trying to make a specific movie. By the end, you're just trying to make a movie. Like you're
Right.
just trying to
You're just trying to get it done.
and so that you need that process of being able to see what you have, see what's working and not working, and be able to adjust accordingly. And so what you're seeing here is a movie that they never got to do that. I'm not talking about reshoot the whole thing, retooling the whole thing. You know, a lot of the stuff what we've seen in late stage MCU stuff, but just massaging. Oh, you know, maybe we need a little bit of what's Ileana's deal? Like, what was the history here to explain some of her motivation? Some of that
flashback sequence that showed Ileana killing those people, or explaining the origins of these face dudes, would have been pretty cool.
Yeah,
but only, but really only doing that when you recognize Anya Taylor-Joy's star power and that she is the reason to see the movie, because no one else. I mean, like the Maisie, like, you know, the Danny Rain subplot, like the love plot. It's nice, it's cute. It's probably the emotional crux of the movie.
Yeah,
but I want to watch. The trailer knew, as did the audience, that Magic was the breakout. We want to see Magic do shit.
Yeah,
that was it, and it was just like, you can't. You're just put her in Deadpool 3 or whatever. Like, you know.
Yeah. And it's one of those, like, you know, they say like, oh, the cast was too old, and it's like, yeah, well, in post, after you film this, like Anya Taylor-Joy is now Queen Gambit's Anya Taylor-Joy, and now she's like, you know, because
I'm not coming back for another reshoot. I'm done.
Yeah, because it's not that this was her breakout, because she'd already done The Witch and Split. That would have been a cool reason to get James McAvoy in there to have them reunite.
That would have been fun
for Split. You know, she was already like on her way up, but between when they filmed this and when it came out, it's like, well, Anya Taylor-Joy is Anya Taylor-Joy now. Like she's on the road to Furiosa.
Right,
is what we're doing. Yeah, so it's really, I think it's a bummer that they didn't get to do the reshoots, because I actually think I think, like you and I just said, this movie is better than we anticipated.
Yeah.
And I think there actually could be like a really good movie in here.
Yeah.
If you just like massage it a little bit.
Yes, I think so too. There isn't much I would really change about it, honestly. I mean, like, you know, all the joking aside about like amping up or ratcheting up Magic, just like, well, Magic's just a great fun character.
Yeah. And
I just want to see more of her, especially you know, with Anya Taylor-Joy portraying her.
Yeah.
But there's a movie here, and it's also kind of cool that they decided, you know, whether they couldn't reconcile or decide whether it's a horror or a teen melodrama, it is a bottle movie, or it's like The Raid or Dread, where it's like, it's a central location, it's very tight cast, and never really expands outside of its restrictions. Like, it's a smart move, you know, if you're making an attempt at a side strategy franchise, like back when you were a studio and you were making X-Men into a franchise, and you're trying to build out like the New Mutants as like a potential side franchise like Deadpool from the X-Men. This is a smart way to do it. Keeps the budget tight, you know, focuses on performance. It engenders the audience, or the audience, to these characters, so that when they are in like blue and yellow suits jumping around in CG models, you care about what happens to their models, as opposed to seeing, you know, someone stoically, horribly portraying Jean and Scott, and you're like, I don't like any of you compared to what you were when you were 35.
Yeah, and it's a bummer that, because I could see I do, for these movies issues, I do like these characters. I like the potential here. I would have liked to have seen them grow. And the fanboy me like, cross those guys over.
And I want to see them interact. Yeah.
It's weird that the New Mutants look the same age as the Cyclops and Jean Grey and Storm. Like, that's a little weird, but you know, like, I honestly, I'd rather them interacting with the Marsdens and the Femke Jensens, but like, you know, whatever, man, I'll take
the fun would be, I'd still take the new class.
Yeah.
You know, but
but and truthfully, like, part of me, it's like, do New Mutants too. Maybe have the villain be Sunspot's dad. I don't know if that's something from the comics, but sure, you know, we've established he's filthy rich. He could be a bad guy. Antonio Banderas, I'll watch that shit.
Yeah, he's great.
And then maybe throughout it, he gets kind of like, there's some distance grows between him and the other New Mutants. And then at the end of the movie, maybe post-credit scene, Cable shows up Josh Brolin's
Oh,
cable, and he's like, "You want to come on X-Force?"
yeah.
Or maybe he just
That I
takes
wanna
over the
see.
New Mutant class, and it's like, "Hey, now our New Mutants franchise is our X-Force franchise."
Yep. That'd be fine with me,
Yeah,
especially because that'd be fun. Like New Mutants did transition into X-Force, so yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah.
So anyway, that's the behind the scenes. Last question. We technically got 2 more segments, but the last question we have to ask ourselves: New X-Men. Will any of this transition over into the MCU? What do we think the MCU when they're doing? They just an announcement that they're moving forward with their X-Men movie written by the Hunger Games guy.
Yeah.
Do we think they're going to pull anything from this movie or from New Mutants in general for the new X franchise?
Definitely. Absolutely. I see 2 definite things that they're gonna pull into this. Lockheed the Dragon
Yeah.
and Anya Taylor-Joy. Not as Magic necessarily, but Anya Taylor-Joy is gonna be sniped into the MCU X-Men.
If not Magic, she's really good as Magic.
She is really good as Magic, and she can pull off the accent, but,
Yeah.
yeah.
Who would she be? Who would she?
She'd be a pretty cool Domino.
She would be a pretty cool Domino. I could see a reality where she's Emma Frost.
She'd be Emma Frost, she'd be Boom Boom. Like, I'm thinking I'm in the ancillary teams, but, like,
Yeah.
she could be a great Emma Frost. She could be anybody because she's a really good actor.
Yeah, and I do think, especially with I did really like the way X-Men 97 utilized Sunspot, and I could see with that profile boost him showing up in
Yeah.
one of these X movies. Again, we've said this before throughout the show. I think they should definitely they should lean full force in the X-Men and realize it's a franchise unto itself, and they should have their X-Men movies, and they should have a Disney Plus show that is Young Mutants, either New Mutants, Generation X.
Yep.
Sal, I wanted to ask you, do you think Generation X is done as an X-Men team name?
Yeah, because the reason why it was called that in the first place is because that was the generation that they wanted to buy their comic books.
Yeah.
Now, unfortunately, it is the generation that is supremely buying their comic books.
It's the only generation buying their comics.
So maybe they could get away with it, but only through nostalgia. Gen X is a great name. It is a name that is so coveted and wanted that Gen X was almost the name of Gen 13 until Marvel swooped in and said, "No,
Nope.
Can't use X. We're doing that." And also, then they fast tracked at Generation X being a comic book series. So they went with Gen 13. All the better for Gen 13.
We've cornered the market on the letter X. Here's my thing, man. I like Generation X as a team, maybe because it has X in it. I like it better than New Mutants. New Mutants has just never worked for me as like a group name.
I don't really understand. If they're around for longer than a year, they're not new anymore. So do we have to keep rotating out the cast? Like I don't care for the name.
Yeah, I get it. Like I get because obviously Generation X is an actual generation, and on social media we love talking about Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, Millennials, Zillennials, Zoomers. We love that talk. We love pitting the different gens against each other.
Yeah, I could see them using it, but you can't call a movie Gen X.
Could you instead of saying Generation X, just call it Gen X, and that gives you a little bit of distance from
definitely
the actual.
You can get away with it. Yeah, but you got so many better names. You got X Factor, X Force, Extinction, Executioners. Like you got a lot of cool names that maybe weren't even necessarily team names, but would still work before you did Generation X. The only reason why you'd call a show, movie, franchise, comic book Gen X now is if you were to put like Rogue and like people who are in their 50s.
I think the other thing that hurts it here is that Gen X is just Gen X. It doesn't have like millennials or Zoomers or boomers. It's just Gen X.
There's just there's no compliment.
So. Yeah. So that's just how we know it as. Anyway, okay. So Anya Taylor-Joy, Sunspot, those are who we think we'll be bringing back. And I do think there should be a young X-Men team. I could almost guarantee you that Iman Vellani's Miss Marvel will be a part of whatever that is. Probably the poster child for whatever that is.
No, I mean, it makes sense, but she could be an Avenger. I mean, like she isn't. If you're on a Disney cruise, she is an Avenger.
She is an Avenger. Yeah. That's a good point. She could be crossover. Storm's an Avenger now too.
That's true. That's true.
She could be on both teams. She could be the Wolverine of the new MCU.
I kind of love that
She's
anyway.
on Young Avengers because you recruited what's her face for the Young Avengers.
Hawkeye, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let's rank this bad boy. Generation. By the way, this is our last movie, gang. This is the last of the X movies as of right now. Right? We're not missing one. There's not another failed TV pilot or something. Unless you want to do are there animated like Wolverine versus the Hulk or whatever?
Those are amazing, but like they're not connected. You know, this is it.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right. This is the last of this is definitely the last of the Fox live action movies, which is pretty much the entirety of our ranking because we Gen X was like a bonus thing. It doesn't count. The X-Men doesn't count. We did both of those. So Sal, should we start at the top or the bottom?
Let's start at the bottom. Let's do the worst of the worst
and work our way up.
So
this will probably be our final. This will be where our list lands.
Yeah.
Okay. Worst of the worst.
The worst of the worst. Bottom of the barrel.
Wolverine.
X-Men
Origins Wolverine.
It always will be. It might as well. It wins the prize of being.
It might be. X-Men Origins Wolverine is in the conversation of the worst superhero movies ever made.
Yeah,
it's with Halle Berry's Catwoman, right?
Yes, it's up there. Yeah, it's right alongside it. Yeah, because it's just as pathetic and terrible and cartoonish and insulting and weird and head scratching and it's not. Catwoman is like, I remember when they released the suit for Catwoman and I was like, oh, it's going to be a complete shit show. Like that. Like, people were like trying to defend it or argue it. I'm like, why are you bothering? It's just they don't even know what they're doing.
Yeah. I mean, they knew some of what they were doing. Let's have Halle Berry in as little as clothes as possible. They knew some of what they were doing.
They did that. You could do the same. You could still at least have a weird, funny hacker movie like Swordfish, and you get more Halle Berry in that than you do in Catwoman.
Yeah. All right. So for me, next worst is Apocalypse.
I think Dark Phoenix is worse than Apocalypse.
You think Dark Phoenix worth? For me, it's flipped. Dark Phoenix I like slightly more than Apocalypse.
That's fair.
So is that what's your next one after Dark Phoenix? Apocalypse?
It's Apocalypse. Apocalypse is really bad. It's really bad. I don't know if it's as bad as Last Stand, but I'll say it's just as bad as Last Stand. So we could say it's Apocalypse.
Okay. All right. For me, do I believe this? Hold on. Hold on. I have New Mutants next to. I have New Mutants as the.
You think New Mutants? This movie is worse than X-Men 3: The Last Stand.
Do I really think that? I
don't.
I remember when we saw Last Stand, and I was disappointed to discover that it was better than a lot of superhero movies that had been released at the time. Not that it was good. That's not me saying it's good.
No,
I'm just saying you compare it to Quantumania, and it's like, well, at least Last Stand has a perspective and like sticks to like knows what. Okay, all right,
fair.
Okay, all right. I can't defend it, and because I can't defend it, I won't defend it. Next, after Dark Phoenix, will be Last Stand.
All right.
Yep.
So it's Wolverine for me, Dark Phoenix, Apocalypse, and then Last Stand.
Okay. So then is New Mutants for me.
Then it's New Mutants for me as well. After Last Stand,
which makes it sound like I like it a lot less than I did. I do like it. It's just it feels like an incomplete movie to me.
Yeah, and I'd rather watch all the movies after this more than New Mutants, unless I was changing, unless I was in some kind of different mood. But I do dig this movie. But
definitely, I think you and I are the same boat. We see the potential of it. It's like I would have seen New Mutants too. I'd like to see where these characters go.
Yeah.
Next up for me is Deadpool.
For me, it's Deadpool 2.
Okay. Deadpool 2 is just above Deadpool for me.
There you go.
Yeah. Right. I like the Cable and the Domino, and I feel like we're doing more things. I'm into that.
They are doing more things. That's true.
Yeah. Okay. So for Deadpool 2, what's above Deadpool 2 for you?
First Class.
First Class. Okay. See, for me, it's Deadpool 2, then First Class.
That's fair. For me, it's New Mutants, Deadpool 2, First Class.
Okay. After First Class for me is the Wolverine.
Same. The Wolverine.
Okay. Wolverine. Okay. So after the Wolverine is X1.
Okay. After the Wolverine for me is Deadpool 1.
Gotcha. Okay. Next for me is X1.
Okay. So after the Wolverine for me, it's Deadpool 1.
Yeah. Okay.
That's we're in our top 4, I think.
Yeah, but All right, let's do a quick run where we're at, because I feel
Yeah.
like we've gotten a little off.
Yeah, because there's 13 of these, so
Yeah. So right now, X-Men, or going from bottom to top,
yes.
X-Men Origins, Apocalypse for me. X-Men
Mhm.
Origins, Apocalypse, Dark Phoenix, Last Stand, New Mutants, Deadpool, Deadpool 2, First Class, The Wolverine, X1. So that's 10. I've got 3 left.
Okay. Then for my fourth one, it's Logan.
Logan. Okay. So then for me, number 3 spot is taken up by X2.
Okay. My third spot is X-Men 1.
Okay. Number 2 for me, Days of Future Past.
Same. Days of
Yeah.
Future Past for number 2 for me.
Okay. And my number 1, and to be honest, gang, this I was surprised, but it feels right to me, is Logan. I think my favorite Fox X-Men movie is Logan.
That's fair.
Yeah.
My number 1 is still X2.
Hard to beat. X2 is hard to beat. I think you can make. I would hear arguments for Days of Future Past because it does all the things. That top 3. I feel really confident about my top 3. Logan, Days of Future Past, X2. I feel like those are my faves.
I agree.
Those are my faves. Cornet Chris asks, "Isn't there a TV show called Mutant X?" There is, and I think it's a Fox show.
Yep.
And I think it's one of those like kind of on the fence. Like, it definitely was meant to be an X-Men show, but isn't one.
Or like, is Legion also in that universe? I don't know.
Yeah, Legion is Professor X shows up in Legion. So that's that one we're on. The X-Men are mentioned. Professor X shows up in season 3.
Nice.
We're firmly intention, and I will defend most of Legion. There's a decision at the end of season 2 that I think derails the show in a really hard way. Just on a multiple levels, and maybe we'll cover Legion someday. We'll see.
Yeah.
But that's the end of the road for these X-Men movies. Sal, any final thoughts on the Fox X film franchise?
Right. It's been a crazy ride. It's been an insane kind of like journey. And I understand, like, I think genuinely that like the secret wars of it all is going to be the X-Men franchise versus the MCU.
Yeah.
And for my money, there are fewer franchises that have achieved what the X-Men have done. The X-Men have, because they've been around for as long as they have, and they were run by Fox, and they had people at the helm like Tom Rothman and Simon Kinberg, that there's going to be some lousy movies in here. But you have to admire, at the very least, its longevity and its attempt to turn a franchise into the X-Men and execute a myriad of different kinds of movies. I think part of the reason why the MCU was a success, and I say was, not because it isn't one anymore, but certainly it was undisputedly one before this. Is because of its hegemony and its like not interchangeability, but its tone. The Marvel Cinematic Universe was this world, this tone, this status. And people, by and large, just showed up and were happy to accept it. The X-Men is demonstrably not. They very much try, and they were constantly. One was run by something different, right? The Marvel Studios, they were like, make it like this and follow this formula, more or less. Whereas Fox approached it like a movie studio. And the movie studio is like, well, each movie is a picture, and we're making a picture right now, and we have a talent behind that picture, and there's a lead, and the lead is Wolverine, and Wolverine has to be the most muscular and tall man available. Like, and as much as it sounds like I'm making fun of them, and I am definitely, you can see that in its successes and failures. Like, X-Men is like, we're a movie studio making a cinematic universe, whether we like it or not. As opposed to the Marvel Studios, which is like, we started out as we are starting as a cinematic universe.
And it's interesting too. And I think going back and revisiting it, I think one of the things that, looking at it as a whole, because I remember a lot of people would dunk on the X-Men franchise, and I would defend it because, especially at the time with Marvel dominance, it was something different. But watching them all together, you can kind of feel where they were in some ways, they were unable to adapt with, like, how many movies ended with them having the comic accurate costume just to have it throw out for the next movie
with no explanation.
Like, I guess we're going to try this may be it, but I
Yep.
will say in their defense, there was enough flexibility in that you would get a Deadpool or a Logan. Whereas, uh, like you said, Marvel kind of had that tone, but on the other hand, you wouldn't get something like in the core franchise, they had trouble switching up the formula where you wouldn't get whatever the equivalent is of like a Black Panther.
Right.
Something that would really like break out. Like they treat it like X-Men 1 and 2 and 3, and then reboots of the X-Men, and then spin-offs of the X-Men. And you're like, you guys know you can like do different things with this. You have guys that have like a jillion characters, like do X-Force, do X Factor, or
Absolutely.
when you're doing a show, don't have it be The Gifted, have it be Generation X or one of these. Like you guys, you know what you have, right? Like
No, and they don't. Like
No.
the fact is that because they're a movie studio,
Yeah.
they're like, I didn't get into this. I don't run this studio to make adaptations.
Yeah.
That's not my jam. My jam is making money, but I came into this because I saw Gunsmoke, and I wanted to make a film.
Mhm.
And I, lost my way, and now I want to make millions of dollars. But but every time that I like look at a comic book, I get like angry. You can feel like that's certainly that's Warner Brothers, that's Disney to some extent, that's every movie studio where they're like, I resent the fact that I in any way rely on this as I consider to be dead medium.
Yeah.
And every time that like people tell me to make it more like the comic book or just get the comic book people to do it,
Yeah.
I throw up in a garbage can next to my desk. Like
Yeah.
I'm so angry. Like you can feel that. I mean, when they're making every time up until the Batman, they were making Batman movies. Like, God damn it! Like as I guarantee, I promise you, everyone above James Gunn
Yeah.
looks at Batman as a James Bond franchise as opposed to a comic book adaptation.
Yeah.
It wasn't like, you know what I mean? Like they're just like, Chris Nolan's like, I always wanted to make a James Bond movie, but I guess since I'm working with Americans, I'll make the American equivalent, which is Batman.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
Batman's not a James Bond character. Like, no, but for us, it is. Like through our lens, it is. And the X-Men, it's like we were never gonna get a comic book adaptation that was in any way like X-Men from Fox. Like the closest thing we got was Deadpool, and it was mainly because, and it's the reason why the MCU does what it does, it's because one guy had enough like power
Yep.
to get it through.
Yep.
Right? Like, and it's also why like Black Adam failed. Because one guy
Yep.
had all the power and thought he could do the same thing.
He could make it happen. Black Adam, somebody brought up, so I haven't seen the Super Pets movie, but Black Adam even shows up in the Super Pets movie.
They like
Black
tease
Adam.
it. Yeah. And they thought like, oh yeah, and they're gonna fight. Like in the live action movie. Like
And in their defense, man, nobody would have thought in the 2000s that Iron Man would be like the biggest thing ever. So, but this is an interesting artifact of a different time. We are now entering into I guess less entering into a new era of what superhero media looks like, as opposed to it feels like we're leaving the current era of what superhero media looks like. And it'll be interesting to see what Deadpool and Wolverine feels like now that it has changed parents.
Right.
And I think you're right, Sal. I think we're leading to Secret Wars, which will be the MCU versus X-Men. And it was fun. I was just thinking about today. I was thinking about the hype around, because I just saw, I went and saw RRR again in theaters.
Oh,
it's a special screening, and the crowd was so lively and so into it. And I was like, the last time I had something even close to this, and I would argue even this is more vibrant than that, was Endgame.
You're right.
And it's like, it's crazy that I think we're like, what, a year, 2 years out from Secret Wars, and everything's like, whatever.
Well, we shouldn't even know the Secret Wars on the horizon. Like when they made that announcement where they were like, oh, here's the next 2 phases. I was like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
Because now you've essentially invalidated everything that comes up until Secret Wars, because everyone's just going to be talking about Secret Wars. And even then, you don't even know what Secret Wars is, because you don't even know what Ant-Man 3 is.
Yeah.
And it was just like, you really effed up. Like Marvel, you really messed up. No one's going to be excited for anything you do until Secret Wars. And Secret Wars will never be Endgame.
Yeah. because Endgame exists. We already did it.
You did it, and you earned it. That's the that's the worst part, because like you'd never earned cross franchise interactions. Like you never earned No Way Home or like the post credits scene in the Marvels.
Yeah.
There is nothing. People, the only context people have is they saw those movies and these movies.
Yeah.
But like the incursions thing is not like a well established. It's established in the lore, but like in the audience's minds.
Yeah.
They're not it's not established. Like the audience doesn't. The audience knows what an infinity gem is.
Yeah.
More than they know what an incursion is.
Yeah.
And you made a show where there's like 1,000 infinity rocks in a drawer in the nexus of the universe at some like weird 60s Art Deco office.
Yeah.
So, like, congratulations on taking the thing that like made your audience completely like in the palm of your hand and then invalidating it completely.
Yeah.
And trying to supplant it with something like, hey, remember this?
Hey, listen, man, that's what we got to do. Like, listen, Piccolo is the biggest bad. He's the toughest guy until Frieza shows up, or whoever, was it Vegeta? I don't know. And then that guy hands him his ass. And like, oh, now this guy is the toughest, beefiest boy that we're going to have to fight.
But there isn't even a beefy boy to fight right now. It's just like the worst. Marvel's in such a crappy place right now because they won, right? Every other movie, Daredevil, Elektra, Spider-Man 3, Ghost Rider, Fan-4-Stick. All these movies are their lunch was consumed by Ant-Man and Thor and Captain Marvel. And then you traded all that in for, but wouldn't it be cool if Ben Affleck's Daredevil met Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man in a world where Thor exists? Like, no one thought of that. No one wanted that.
Yeah.
And would it be interesting? Only in like the most superficial of ways, but like, but you ate their lunch. You talked about how you pantsed them and showed them how bad they did what they did. And now you're going to like parade them out. 20 years past their prime, as though that is in any way an original idea that people want to see, that somehow strengthens your position. Oops.
Well, listen, gang.
Sorry.
I want to thank everybody for joining us on this X-Men journey.
Yes.
Tagging along for our X-Men journey. This show will continue in some form or fashion. Sal and I are still figuring out the logistics of it.
Yes.
But we love you all. We love seeing you all. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, if you want more Sal and DJ goodness, you can go over to patreon.com/onlystupidanswers for Spider-Versity. We just finished our discussion of Spider-Man Unlimited. It was a tough one. But
Dina, can you ballpark how many episodes of Spider-Versity we have in the can right now?
I don't have to ballpark it. I can just tell you.
Nice, because I'm saying like there's a cache of a show that you may have never seen before that is available, and is very similar to this show, but with Spider-Man.
With Spider-Man,
and who knows what the future holds for this this format / franchise. But
so next Wednesday, a week from today, we will be getting episode 78.
Wow,
of Spider-Versity.
That's awesome.
And that's where we wrap up our Spider-Man Unlimited discussion. We just dropped this week a little sneak peek of our first Spider-Man Unlimited episode. There's a few sneak peeks on this channel of the part ones. If you want the full discussions, you can do that over Patreon. But yeah, check that out. Next up on the Spider-Versity docket is Madam Web. You don't want to miss it. You don't want to miss it. And check out Comic Pop. There'll be links in the description if there aren't already. If you want more Sal goodness, give that some love. And listen, gang, be well. And we'll see you all next time. Bye, everybody.